This program presents original audio recordings and related primary source materials connected to the criminal case of Jeffrey Epstein. Names referenced in these calls are often abbreviated, incomplete, or identified only by initial. No assumptions are made regarding identity unless explicitly supported by court records. I will not be providing any political commentary, nor will I be speculating on anything or any of this evidence. There will be no conclusions drawn. I am not making this a political video. I am strictly going to give you the evidence and let you decide for yourself what is true and what is not true and who should be held accountable. I believe that all victims of sexual assault deserve justice. And I believe that all individuals who perpetrate on young girls and boys deserve justice. They deserve to be held accountable. Other than that, I will be making no more conclusions. While recorded audio is playing, this video displays images released through the U.S. Department of Justice data production. These materials are presented without editorial interpretation. Images appear for visual continuity only and should not be interpreted as evidence connected to the specific audio segment being heard. No inference should be drawn from their placement or timing.
Today's date is Thursday, July 24th. This will be the recording of a proffer agreement of Ghislaine Maxwell from the Deputy Attorney General, DOJ, and the time is currently 9:16. Maxwell and counsel are arriving to the U.S. Attorney's Office, and we will commence the proffer shortly.
I'm going to ask everybody to put their name on the record.
Good morning. My name is Assistant Special Agent in Charge Spencer Horn of FBI New York. Today we're doing a proffer of Ms. Maxwell. The date is July 24th, and the time is 10:12 a.m. This interview is being recorded.
And my name is Todd Blanche. I'm the Deputy Attorney General. And before we start formally asking questions of Ms. Maxwell, I'm going to put on the record everybody that's in this room in addition to me. Starting with you, Diego.
Diego Pastana, Associate Deputy Attorney General.
And then you heard from Special Agent in Charge Horn. Mark Beard from the United States Marshal Service is here as well. And then David.
Yes, this is David Oscar Marcus, and I'm counsel for Ghislaine Maxwell.
My name is Thea Safian, and I'm counsel for Ghislaine Maxwell.
My name is Melissa Madrigal, and I'm counsel for Ghislaine Maxwell.
Go ahead.
And I'm Ghislaine Maxwell.
Good morning, Ms. Maxwell. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Black.
Good. Okay, so before we started recording, we met for a few minutes. I introduced myself and we chatted, and now I told you that we were going on the record. And before we start asking questions, I know that you've been given by your lawyer a copy of what's called a proffer agreement. And I just want to spend 2 minutes making sure that you understand what governs our conversation today. The most important part of this agreement is that this isn't a cooperation agreement, meaning that by you meeting with us today, we're really just meeting. I'm not promising to do anything. I'm not promising to ask Judge Nathan or any of the judges that's been assigned to your case to do anything. We're just talking. And so that's the most important part of this agreement. However, almost as important is the fact that what this agreement does for you is it gives you protection. So what it means is that the government cannot use what you say today against you, with some exceptions, which we'll talk about in a minute. But whatever you talk about today, you have what's called immunity. So that means that the words that you say today, we cannot use against you in a case in chief if we were ever to bring one. Okay?
Thank you.
There's exceptions to that. The most meaningful one of which is that if you say something today that's not true, that's a lie, we can bring a prosecution against you for what's called false statements. So I'm a federal officer. I have several officers here. The FBI is here, and if you lie to someone that's like me or like Special Agent Horn, it's a crime. So you have to be truthful. The other exception to this that doesn't necessarily apply directly to you, but if there ever was a retrial in your case, or if there ever was a criminal case, a future criminal case against you, and your lawyer or you said something different or took a position that's different than what you say today, we can then cross-examine you or a witness based upon what you say today. So it's a little bit nuanced, meaning I can't use what you say against you in our case in chief. However, if you were to testify, or if your lawyer called a witness to testify and they said something that is totally different than what you say today, we could then cross-examine you or the witness and say, hey, do you remember when we met with Miss Maxwell back in July of 2025? She told us, and then say what she said. Okay?
I understand.
Okay. Other than that, I know you didn't have a lot of time this morning to meet with Mr. Marcus, but did you have a chance to go over this briefly with him?
I did.
Okay. All right. So I've already signed it, as has Special Agent Horn,
Okay.
and Mr. Marcus signed it as well. So you got a pen? Please sign it right where it says
Okay.
clients. Yep. And I will provide a copy of this to your lawyer so you
Thank
guys
you.
have it. Okay. Thank you. So, Ms. Maxwell, about a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago,
You see the light blinking on there? On the Sony. Yeah, there it is.
okay, we're just confirming that it works, and it does. Ms. Maxwell, I guess about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, Mr. Marcus reached out to me and said that you wanted to speak with somebody from the government about not only your case, but about everything that's been in the media and that's been publicized about Mr. Epstein in your case.
That is true, and I did speak to him, and I did ask him did tell him that I was very keen to talk to anyone, because no one from the government at any time ever since the inception of the case, so dating back to the early 2000s, has ever spoken to me, and indeed I believe ever reached out to me at any time to even speak to me, and that includes up to when I was indicted and prosecuted. I believe that, or I understand, I should say, rather, that my attorneys at the time did tell the government that I wanted to speak to them, because I was very keen to meet with anyone so that I could tell or have them ask me any question. I've never had any problem to speak to anybody, and I offered myself, and I kept asking if they would meet with me so that I could talk to them, and for whatever reason, that was not happening.
Okay. I have questions that I want to ask you, but I'm not, if there's a question that I'm not asking that you think should be asked, I invite you to volunteer. Same thing goes to your lawyers. Just to start a little bit, very briefly, can you talk about when you first met Mr. Epstein? I know that goes back a while, and just very generally talk about your relationship with Mr. Epstein from the time you met him all the way up until his death.
I met Mr. Epstein in 1991. I'd never heard of him or met him before, and no one in my family had ever either. My father never knew him, and I'll explain why that is the case.
Where did you meet him?
I had a girlfriend who I'd moved to America briefly I'd moved to America in 1990,
Okay.
Moved, was a big word. I'd come to visit America in 1990. I had been running my own company up until that time, which was a company called Maxwell's Corporate Gifts. And I had also been working for my father at the time. I'd had multiple jobs with him. I was, in 1990, I was working with a new company of his, a new newspaper that he was launching called The European. And I was in charge of launching a magazine to go with the European. And I was traveling at that time from England to America because my father was looking to, he'd also bought Macmillan, the publishing house, and he had purchased the New York Daily News. And it's true to say that my father always wanted me to come back full-time and work for him, but that's a much longer story. I don't think we need to go into it this time. So, but I was always working with him. Well, there was no escaping, if it were, as it were, to work for him. So, in 1990, I had come over to New York to help look at some of that. He was having some advertising issues with the New York Daily News, and in fact, I may have met Donald Trump at that time because my father was friendly with him and liked him very much. And I think it should be said that he also very much liked Ivana because she was also from Czechoslovakia, where my dad was from. So I don't remember if I did meet him or not in 1990 with my dad, but I knew that that's how I knew about then Mr. Trump.
And this was before you met.
This was before I met
Mr.
Mr. Epstein.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Right.
So I was already going backwards and forwards in America, and then in April of 1991, I came to New York. I can't remember for what reason, what business reason, but there was a business reason, something to do with my dad at that time. And a girlfriend of mine, who an American, told me I broken up with I've been engaged, getting with a very long-term boyfriend, and we've broken up. And she said, well, I got, as your girlfriends do, I've got a guy for you to meet. And I was like, who is it? And she goes, he's been dating my sister, you'll love him, he's looking for a wife. I'm edging towards 30, I don't need to tell you guys that's a very important moment for a girl to think about important things. Sure, I'd be happy to meet him. And so sometime in 1991, we're in 1991, I met him at his offices on Madison Avenue. And I think the most memorable thing I can think about that is he was wearing a tie, which he didn't often do, and it had a giant tomato ketchup stain on it. So I was like, wow, okay. And that was how we met.
Was your meeting at his office for you to meet him just personally, or were you there for work-related reasons?
No, well, I knew nothing about him. Okay. He just invited me to come and have tea at him. And I was like, tea, that's English, okay. But what was unusual was in his offices. So I went to his offices and we met. And I found him very engaging, and that was that.
So, okay, so that's how you meet him. So, and again, I don't want to spend a lot of time, on this particular issue, but what happened with your relationship over the years from the time you meet him in 1991 up until the time he passed away? Just give the highlights.
Okay, so I was looking for real estate for my dad to buy some, and Epstein told me that he was also looking to move from his apartment, and would I help him? And I said, sure, I'm looking already, so I could look for him. So that's how it started. And then in 1991, my father passed away, and I returned to New York after that, originally to come back and help with family businesses, which was Macmillan, And then the debacle of my father's passing hit the family, and we lost all our businesses, and my family thought that it would be best if I stayed in America because of the intensity of the press and the drama surrounding my father's death in England. So I stayed, and Epstein said, well, you can keep helping me, you can help me find that house, and you can decorate the house, and it gave me something to do.
Were you in a romantic relationship with her at this point, or just
No,
friends?
just friends.
And while we're just, with respect to your father, there have been multiple questions about whether he worked for any intelligence agency. Do you have any knowledge about that?
I think, well, certainly my father had a background in intelligence because he was, I believe he did in the Second World War. He was a British intelligence officer. I think that my sort of belief is that once you've been an intelligence officer, you're kind of always, it doesn't mean that you're formally employed. So I don't think my dad in any formal sense was employed by any agency, but when you are a very significant businessman and politician, as my father was, you meet with people all the time, and you, I guess, trade business or ideas. I think if that would fall under that definition, that's how I would think of it. Now, he certainly, I have no formal knowledge of anything specifically that he did in that thing, but if you're asking me if I thought that he did help people, the answer would be yes, I do.
Did your father and Mr. Epstein have a business relationship over the years? I know we're maybe jumping around a little bit.
They never met. So
As far as you know, they never even met.
no,
Or you know they never met.
I know they never met.
Okay, well, how do you know they never met?
Just categorically no, they never met. Well, because after in 1991, before my father died, he asked me if I'd met anybody interesting or whatever, because I was still trying not to be sucked back into the family business. And I told him that I had met Mr. Epstein, and the reason why I shared that I'd met Mr. Epstein because I believed at that time that Epstein worked for Bear Stearns, and Bear Stearns was one of our banks. And I knew that my father was friendly with both Jimmy Kane and with Ace Greenberg. So my dad was actually in New York, I think. I don't think I had this conversation on the phone, but I honestly, we're talking 30 years ago, so I'm not sure. But maybe I told him this verbatim because I know that what my dad did, whether I saw it or whether he did it and told me later, I don't remember. But he called both Jimmy Kane and Ace Greenberg to ask what sort of guy he was and was he even allowed to, because
They never met.
He didn't even know
But
who
they
he was.
had. They knew some of the same people. It sounds like, or certainly the Bear Stearns connection was something that you knew that they had.
No, well, he never had a connection with Epstein. He had a connection with the bank. I mean, Epstein, I'd never heard of him or knew of him before, and I certainly, if my dad had known him, right, when I said this is who he was, he didn't know who he was. Yeah. So he rang Ace and he rang Jimmy to ask if it was okay that I even knew him. And I just want to explain briefly why my father would even do such a thing. I've had some interesting things that have happened in my life, and one of them was to be found on an IRA kidnap and murder list. And so after that happened, well, there were other related, I'm not going to bore you with all the horrible things in that vein, but if you want the details, of course, I can. But after that happened, my father wanted to put a lot of protection on, obviously. and I declined on the grounds that that would be a very life-restricting event. You're all in law enforcement. I know you understand this. And so he had told me that, you know, I would be taking my life in my own hands and whatever. And so I think after that event and several others where I had stalkers and all that thing that one has, he was always quite protective of me. And so if I met somebody, he would try and verify that they weren't going to do anything hideous. And so in case you thought it was weird that he would call Jimmy and Ace, it might, you may think it is, but from my perspective, he was just because he was concerned. I was in America alone, and he had an opportunity to verify who this person was. And so I don't know if I was in the room with him, I don't recall, but I know that at some point my father told me, he's fine, you can see him.
Yeah.
He's safe.
Okay.
Well, okay.
So we might come back and touch a little bit more on that at some point, but
Yeah.
I went down a rabbit hole for a minute.
That's all right,
about
I just wanted to-
father. No, that's helpful. Thank you. So, okay, so you're now in the 90s and you're friends with Mr. Epstein, your house, decorating the house or the apartment. What happened with your relationship again? I know we're talking about a 35-year time period or whatever, but to the extent you can kind of at a very high level talk about it.
Listen, I think just full disclosure is the best way to go at this point.
Yeah.
So in 1992, I slept with him one time. And I was like, oh, that's it, we're going to be dating. Because that's how I thought. And I kind of thought of myself in that moment, like, because I felt if you slept with someone that you were then dating them.
Yeah.
That's the world I came from. But that really was, well, that's how I thought. But we didn't sleep together again for, I don't know, really a significant period of time. And when I say
Years or?
I don't know if it was a year. That feels long, but maybe 9 months. I mean, a long time.
Okay.
I just want to go back. So I had found a house for him to rent in New York because he had asked me. I'd been looking for my father, and I found one, which was a former Iranian embassy. I think it was. I think it belonged to the Iranians or the Iraqis. Someone.
Okay.
And I didn't know that he had any money, really, and it was like, I want to say it was $12,000 a month, which to me seemed like a fortune. And I said to myself, I found this house, but I don't think you can afford it. It was ridiculous. Of course I can afford it, and he rented it. And that house came with, it was a State Department house, because it was, I think it was under sequestration or whatever it was. And I put it back together, but there were certain rules you couldn't paint, because it had to go back when you gave it back to the country. So he had this house, and I had moved into a 10-foot by 10-foot apartment because all of our stuff had been either lost or frozen or whatever. So he became, in this moment of my life, really, because I was like, everything felt very similar to this moment, if that makes sense. Anyway, but I had no key to his house. I had no free access to his house. And in the entire time that he lived there, which was, I believe, until the beginning of 1996, I never slept a single night in the house. Ever. Not one.
But so you said a minute ago that that you had slept with him on one occasion, and at the time you remember thinking, that this meant you were in a relationship, but then it didn't. You really were not in that type of relationship.
Well, I thought,
did that change over between 91 and 92 or whatever, and years forward?
So I did travel with him a lot.
Okay.
So I would go to his houses on the beach. He only had that house actually. No, that's not true. He had the house in Palm Beach, and he had a house in Ohio.
In where?
Ohio.
Okay.
And he had the house in Ohio because of his business relationship with Mr. Wexner. And he had and I had to go and decorate and put that house together. When we traveled together, we stayed in the same bed, but not in the, but I didn't.
Go ahead, it's okay. Talk. So you stayed, so when you would travel with him to his houses in Palm Beach, Ohio, or even just traveling, if it was just traveling with him, you would um, stay in the same bed, so sleep in the same bed with him.
Yes.
Okay.
Epstein told me that he had a heart condition.
Hey, what?
Heart condition.
Heart condition. Okay.
Which meant that he didn't have intercourse a lot, which suited me fine because I actually do have a medical condition, which precludes me having a lot of intercourse.
So what was your understanding of his heart condition and why that prevented him from having intercourse regularly?
I mean, he liked other forms of sexual activity.
Well, let's come back. We're going to obviously spend a lot of time on the actual conduct he was accused of. So we'll come back to that. So pick up where you were talking about you traveling around with him. He rented the New York former Iranian house
Yeah.
until around 96. That time, I believe you said that he was basically your life, like you were with him pretty regularly.
Well, no.
Okay.
So I never was with him regularly. That
Okay.
is one of those misnomers. I mean,
Okay.
at the beginning, I did see more of him, but I worked in his office. So I would go to the office and I would see him. And I would count in my head when I would see him, I would count that that'd be a day that I would see him. But I never ever stayed with him. I believe, certainly until 93 or 94, what I didn't know was that I think he was still with his actual girlfriend, who was Eva Anderson then, who became Eva Dubin. They had been together, my understanding, I think about 10 years. I'm not sure, but that's what I think, 10 years. And I had understood from my girlfriend initially that they weren't together, and Epstein himself had told me that they were not together, but I don't think that was true. In fact, I know it's not true. So they were still together up until, I think, 94, when at some point in that period of time, Eva met Glenn Dubin, and they got married. I think in 94, I don't remember when they got married. But her, she was his best friend and his everything. He told me that he always wished that he had married her and had a child with her. And I know that she was family for him for his whole life. And I think even, I'm not sure this is true, but you guys will know if this is true or not. When he came back from Paris and you arrested him, I don't know if Eva was on the plane. Now, I think that either I read it in the discovery that I received, or I saw it somewhere, but even if she wasn't on the plane, there must have been some email communication where she was in Paris at the same time and going to fly back. One or the other, I don't know which one is the correct version of that. But so they were still obviously very close and remained throughout the entire. In fact, he was saw her love. And so I also know now, which I didn't know at the time, was that he saw lots of other women. And I know that now because I can see it from the flight logs, and I know it now because I can see from the emails.
So you know from the case
Yes,
that what happened.
Yes, I didn't know
that along the way.
Contemporaneously, I absolutely didn't know.
So okay, so just and we're going to spend time on everything you're talking about, but just to kind of close out big picture your relationship. So we're now in the late 90s. Continue on with, again, staying high level to the extent you can about your relationship with him.
So my responsibilities increased with each acquisition that he had and each new project. So I believe the first thing that he purchased after was the ranch in New Mexico.
Okay.
And so what he had tasked me with up until that, and I think that was purchased in 94, if I'm right. So he had tasked me, one of the things that we did was visit, in my mind I say every state, but it wouldn't have been every state, but many states, to go look at real estate property. And so I know we went to Montana, I know we went to Utah, and it was to go look at real estate. It was fun, to be honest. And then I arranged for us to go to New Mexico, and he just loved New Mexico. And then I don't remember how the ranch happened. I don't remember that now. It's lost. And then he ended up buying the ranch. And I think, if I'm right, it came from the kings who may have been the governor. I don't know, bought the ranch. And then I had to deal with that. And dealing with that was extensive. I mean, the way that I thought of myself, or the way that I think is the best way to explain how I view my role, was as a general manager, because each property to me was like a hotel. So the ranch was very challenging, because not only that, but it had BLM land. So to maintain your BLM, you had to have cattle. And I love animals, and so the first thing, and horses, and so I wanted it. If you're going to have a ranch, I like authenticity, so I don't think you should have a ranch if you're not going to have the things that make it special.
So were you paid by him along the way?
So
during
I
this time?
became salaried at some point.
Okay.
My memory is that I got paid $25,000 a year to begin with. That's my memory. I may be wrong. And then with each, as it became more obvious, because I kept thinking I was going to go home being England. And but it.
Did you, and financially, you were not relying on him, the 25,000 or whatever amount you were paid, were you relying on that money to live and his generosity to live, or did you have your own money?
So there's a.
And again, I want to just make sure we're talking about like keeping it between like the late 90s, maybe I guess into a little the 2000s.
I just want to hit something on the head right now. There's a tremendous amount of reporting that said that I had a trust fund. I have never had a trust fund at any time.
So how did you live? Did you live with I mean, 25,000 is not enough to live on.
No. So I had, during this period of time, the Serious Fraud Squad had come to see me in relation to my father's passing, and to establish whether I had been involved in any way with his business or with any shenanigans. I think I've told the story many times, so I don't know if it's now somewhat hypocritical, but I'll tell you what my memory is. So I received a letter from them that said, "Go about my business," and my memory, maybe hypocritical, was a PS that said, "Are you Snow White's cousin?" I had nothing. I was never involved in any of his business, whatever. So I was free. And
But obviously your father and your family had a lot of businesses. Is it because the money, whatever money or whatever equity was in the businesses, just stayed with your other family members?
No, there was no money. So my father was never attached to money. He was born a peasant, a real one, dirt floor, no shoes, no clothes, some clothes, but not, sorry, I don't mean to say, and nothing. And he was never into that. I mean, there were things that he had, his extravagances. He loved his boat and his plane. So obviously you need money for that, but there was nothing else. And there was not a single penny that came to any of us at any time, ever.
Okay, so when you're talking about your life with Mr. Epstein in the 90s, you're very different financially. You're very different financially positioned than he is. Meaning,
Absolutely.
He's giving you money. He's paying for when you fly. He, I assume,
Absolutely.
pays for your flights.
Yes.
Okay. Um, Okay, so I interrupted you when you were saying how you were functioning as general manager, you helped with the New Mexico ranch. Um, so did your role with him continue like that for many years, or for how long?
So I continued in 2000, well, by 1999, our relationship had foundered.
Why?
Well, two reasons. We were never sleeping together again, so we stopped having sexual relations in 1999. Not full sex, sorry, just to be clear. Didn't mean that we didn't still share a bedroom sometimes or whatever. He had another girlfriend.
He had what?
Other girlfriends. I definitively knew that it was over after 9/11, actually, because we were both from New York. And I don't know, were you in New York? 9/11, I mean, 9/11's. And it was a scary time if you were in New York. You didn't know, I didn't know, nobody knew what was going on. And he was in 71st Street and I was in 65th Street, my house. And he wouldn't see me at all. Asked me, his mum, who I was very close to, was in hospital at Lenox Hill, just asked me to look after her. And then I knew, as anyone did at that time, if you're not going to be there for someone in 9/11, you're never going to be there. So for me, that was the line in the sand. And he had another English girlfriend, actually, from 2000.
Are you, though, still on his, are you still being paid by him at this point?
Yes.
Okay, so go ahead. So what, at that point, when you say you realize kind of, it
Well,
was
I mean, I'm
over-
talking about I wanted to get married and have children. And Epstein had encouraged me to believe that would, I don't know about them, certainly by the late 90s anyway, the marriage part was never going to happen. I had believed that maybe in 96, 97, 98 maybe, but then I realized it wasn't that. But I did think that we might have a child, which is what I had really wanted. I realized...
So what happens between 2001 and then 2019 with your relationship with him?
So,
Give or take 2001.
So we stopped having physicality. I mean, that doesn't mean we weren't friends. I certainly did stay sometimes in his room. I mean, friends with benefits, if you will, just not sex. Sorry, just... and I started dating.
Okay.
And I met someone that I fell very much in love with in 2003. His name was Ted Waite. Ted Waite, you may know as the founder of Gateway, the computers. And we had an amazing relationship that went on until 2010, I think. And I was with Ted from that time.
Did you meet him through Mr. Epstein?
No, well, indirectly, I suppose you could say. So. No, they'd never met. I was at a dinner where I met Ted, but it wasn't. I was with President Clinton. President Clinton was my friend, not Epstein's friend. And Epstein had flown him. And there was a dinner, and Ted came to the dinner. So I guess indirectly through Mr. Epstein, because it was his plane, but I'd have been there anyway without him. Was not
Was
dependent.
Epstein on the plane when you guys flew?
On that trip, yes. Yes. Yes.
So when you say the dinner was where?
Hong Kong.
Okay. And so and you had flown over with, so who was on the plane for that trip? I don't mean everybody. When you said, so Mr. Epstein was on the plane?
Yes.
You were on the plane?
Yes.
Who else? That you can remember. I'm not, you only know what you remember.
Was
No.
President Clinton on the plane?
Clinton. He would have had his guy, Doug Vance, maybe Jason Cooper, maybe Trevor Ritchie. Oh,
And so why, so how do you meet? Why do you say that's when you met him and that you met him through Clinton?
well, I don't think Ted would have been there had it not been it was a President Clinton dinner, and Ted came to be with President Clinton, not to be with Mr. Epstein. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's why I say that.
Okay, so so in the time that you're dating, that you're with him to 2009, are you still working for Mr. Epstein during that time?
It'd be true to say that Jeffrey tried very hard, Mr. Epstein tried very hard to keep me to working for him, because, I mean, this is a complex operation. I'm not talking about anything untoward, just the sheer size of the projects. I'm talking the construction projects, the houses, the staff. It's a really significant job. And I ran all the properties, the staff in the property, the management of the properties, and all the construction. And we're talking tens of millions of dollars. The island alone, I can't remember what the budget was for the construction on any given year. It's gone. But these are very significant projects. And so that was what I did, and I managed the budgets. Well, I didn't manage the budgets, I oversaw the budget. So I would just make sure that if you said you bought an air conditioning plant, I saw an air conditioning plant, and I could call the island manager, did you receive the carrier, whatever, you know.
When did Mr. Epstein purchase the island?
I want to say 96 or 97, something like that.
Okay, so we're going to come back and spend more time on the money with respect to Mr. Epstein and his wealth, but just so we can finish this. So in 2009, you end your relationship with Ted?
2009, 2010.
Okay.
I can't remember if it was 10.
Okay. So in that time period, what happens next as far as your relationship with Mr. Epstein?
I don't have one.
You don't have one of him, like, you don't see him, or it's just a different relationship?
I did see, I maybe saw him once or twice, or maybe even 3 times. I certainly went to his house once, for sure. Maybe twice. But I was not seeing him. The only time that I was in touch with him was when the things happened, like things, I mean, in the press that affected me, or when the CVRA case was filed and there was all that rubbish that went out, because I needed information. Because I didn't know anything about what was happening, and I needed his help. To understand, well, it doesn't maybe sound right. Rephrase that. I don't mean his help. I meant to have answers so that I had an ability to defend myself. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking
So
anything.
when does that relationship change? So you're working, you talked about when the physical relationship stopped, and then you're still working for him or with him, managing his properties and serving as like a general manager. You then start your own relationship with another individual, with Ted, from 2003 till 2009 or 10. At what point in that whole period is there like more of a break where you're no longer acting as his general manager?
I wanted to have a full break when I started dating Ted, and he was clever. I suppose it would be true to say that I sort of viewed Mr. Epstein at that point as sort of family, if you will, like someone I could rely on. And I should have had more confidence in myself. I can see that now. But at the time, given everything that had happened in my life, I thought that it would, and I saw how he was with other people like Eva, who seemed to be very comfortable staying there. I thought this would be, and he always said I was like family, so he worked hard to maintain a relationship with me. He was generous with me. He let me use the plane, for instance, which was very generous. He would check in with my mum. Things that were meaningful to me in that time. And then it may still not have worked, but that his mother, Paula, had been in a very serious car crash, and she had become sort of like a surrogate mother for me, sort of because my mum wasn't there. I could look after her the way that I would. The way that I would have liked to look after my own mum. So I became very close to his mother, and she had been in a car crash, and in 2004, I believe, it may have been 5, I don't recall exactly, her health took a serious decline. And Epstein called me and asked me if I could look after her. And by looking after her, that meant organizing her doctors, making sure she had new clothes, making sure her house was clean.
Where was she?
She lived in a retirement establishment outside of Palm Beach, it's West Palm. I was going to say something like the Golden Girls, but it's not called that. I just don't remember what it's called. But it was an old age. It was a retirement home, if you will.
Todd, I don't know, we've been going for maybe about an hour now. Do you think, is this a good
Sure.
time?
Yeah. So we'll take a break. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to take a break. The time is 10:56.
Before you go, please take a moment to like, share, and leave a comment. It really helps push the story out to a wider audience. The more engagement a video gets, the more the platform recommends it. And cases like this deserve to be seen, heard, and not forgotten. Your interaction doesn't just help the channel, it helps make sure victim stories aren't buried.
I just want to say thank you. Nothing more, no play. I appreciate